The sunlight blazed against the deep metallic blue of the Mustang, each reflection sharp enough to make the air shimmer. Ethan Parker wiped a thin film of dust from the hood with steady care, the kind that came only from years of devotion. The chrome shone like liquid silver, and the neighborhood's background noise, mowers, distant chatter, a barking dog, seemed to fade beneath the quiet authority of the car's presence. This wasn't just a car. It was memory, patience and pride forged into steel. Then came the voice, sharp, commanding and shrill enough to cut glass. "You can't park that thing here, Ethan. It's ruining the view." Linda's words carried across the cul-de-sac with the confidence of someone who'd never been challenged. She marched down her driveway in a tailored gray floral blazer, chin tilted high, her short blonde hair catching the light like a helmet. Her expression was fixed somewhere between outrage and entitlement, as if confronting a criminal instead of a man washing his car. Ethan didn't look up right away. He finished polishing the fender, took a slow breath, and finally turned to face her. "Morning to you too, Linda," he said evenly. Her son followed behind, a tall, broad-shouldered 23-year-old with restless energy and an expensive haircut that didn't quite suit him. Derek's red shirt clung to his frame as he crossed his arms and smirked, clearly enjoying the tension. Linda stopped a few feet away, eyeing the Mustang like an inspector finding a violation. "That Mustang doesn't belong here," she declared. "It's old, loud, and not within HOA standards." Ethan leaned against the hood, calm and unbothered. "It's a classic, not an eyesore." "Classic means outdated," she snapped. "We have rules, Ethan. This neighborhood values modern design. Electric cars, neutral colors, quiet engines. Yours doesn't fit the aesthetic," he chuckled softly. "You mean it doesn't fit your aesthetic?" Derek stepped closer, his eyes full of admiration. "Mom, this thing's awesome." "Look at that chrome." "Man, can I sit in it?" "No," Ethan said sharply. Derek frowned. "Relax, man, I just want to check it out." Linda raised a brow, sensing an opportunity to provoke. "He's just being friendly. You should be neighborly, Ethan. Let him take it around the block." "That's not happening," Ethan replied, straightening up. "You're being difficult over a car," she sneered. "I could have it towed if it violates HOA rules." Ethan's voice dropped, calm but cutting. "You'd need a police report for that." Linda's lips curved into a smug smile. "Maybe I'll get one." He said nothing, just returned to his work. His silence stung more than any insult. Linda lingered, furious that he wouldn't react. Derek kicked the curb, muttering, "Come on, Mom. Let's go." As they left, Ethan felt Linda's glare burning into his back until she finally disappeared around the corner. Peace settled again, thin but welcome. Ethan rinsed the car, admiring the mirror-smooth reflection on its hood. For a moment, everything felt calm, but peace never lasted long with Linda. Later that day, the sound of tires screeching shattered the quiet. Ethan looked up as Linda's white SUV swerved across his driveway, stopping inches from the Mustang. Derek jumped out, music blasting from the car. "Man, I've got to have this ride," he said. "Come on, just one spin around the block." Ethan moved between him and the car. "Touch it, and you'll regret it." Linda appeared again, drawn by confrontation like a moth to flame. "Ethan, why are you threatening my son?" "I'm not threatening anyone," he said evenly. "He's trying to take something that isn't his." "Take?" she repeated mockingly. "He only asked to borrow it." "You're overreacting. We're all neighbors here." Ethan laughed humorlessly. "Borrow? That's what you call it?" Linda crossed her arms. "You seem to forget this is an HOA community. Cooperation is part of our code. If you can't be reasonable, maybe you shouldn't live here." "Reasonable?" he echoed. "You mean obedient?" Her eyes narrowed. "Don't test me, Ethan. I have influence here." "I'm sure you do," he said, turning away. "Just not over me," she called after him, voice rising. "This is my neighborhood." He stopped, glanced over his shoulder, and replied, "No, Linda, it's ours. You just act like it's yours." Her face reddened. "We'll see what the police think about your attitude." Ethan's patience hardened. "Careful with that phone, Linda. You might not like who answers." But she was already storming away, muttering under her breath as Derek followed. Grinning, Ethan stood beside the Mustang, the sunlight now cutting sharp shadows across the driveway. He knew people like Linda, bullies who pushed until someone pushed back. If she was threatening to call the police, this was about to get personal. He wiped one last streak from the bumper, more to calm himself than clean. Then his phone buzzed. A message from a neighbor. Heads up, Linda's talking about you in the HOA chat. Says she's filing a complaint. Ethan stared at the message, then typed back one word. Let her. Thunder rumbled faintly, though the sky was clear. The neighborhood looked the same. Trimmed lawns, pastel houses, but the air felt heavier, tense. He glanced at Linda's house. Curtains shifted. A shadow moved. He could feel her watching. The Mustang gleamed beside him, beautiful, loyal, and now, the spark of a brewing war. He locked the garage, took one last look at the car, and exhaled. The evening sun turned everything gold, but beneath that light the line had been drawn. Invisible yet irreversible. Ethan didn't know what Linda would do next, but whatever she started, he planned to finish. Somewhere in that quiet neighborhood, a phone dialed 3 numbers. 911. The next morning broke unnaturally still. Ethan woke before sunrise, as always. The steady drip of coffee filled the silence. Outside, dew slid off the Mustang's hood like cold silver. Everything looked calm, until blue light flashed against the garage door. 3 police cruisers rolled slowly into the cul-de-sac. Tires crunched on asphalt. Ethan stepped onto the porch, coffee in hand, as the cars stopped in front of his drive. 3 officers got out, cautious but respectful. Behind them stood Linda, hair perfect, blazer buttoned tight, face triumphant. Derek smirked beside her. Sir, one officer said, we received a report about a stolen vehicle on this property. Ethan raised a brow. A stolen vehicle? That one? He nodded toward the Mustang. Linda stepped forward, waving papers that looked like HOA documents. Yes, he doesn't have the proper registration. I think he's hiding something, maybe even pretending to be a police officer. He told me that yesterday. The officers exchanged uneasy looks. Ethan's silence stretched long enough to make her shift uncomfortably. Then he spoke, calm but firm. Impersonating an officer, you said? That's right, she said confidently. You can't use that title to intimidate people. It's illegal. Ethan placed his coffee down, reached into his pocket, and flipped open a leather badge wallet. The sunlight caught the gold emblem inside. Chief Ethan Parker, Metro Police Department, badge number 1329. The air shifted instantly. One officer straightened, embarrassed. Linda blinked, caught between shock and fury. Derek's smirk vanished. You're the chief? She stammered. That's right, he said. Which means you just called my department to report me for stealing my own car. Silence blanketed the street. Everything checks out, Chief, the senior officer said quickly. Sorry for the trouble, Ethan nodded. No harm done. Happens more often than you'd think. Linda's composure cracked. This doesn't change the fact that you're violating HOA standards. Ethan stepped closer. You just filed a false police report, Linda. Do you understand how serious that is? She looked to the officers for support, but none came. Derek shifted uneasily, his earlier confidence gone. The weight of humiliation hung heavy. You can't threaten me, Linda said weakly. Not threatening, Ethan replied, just informing. There's a difference. For a brief moment, he almost pitied her. Almost. Then she turned away, muttering about unfair systems and corrupt cops. The police cars drove off, leaving Ethan alone on the porch with his cooling coffee and an uneasy quiet. By afternoon, that quiet cracked again. Derek's laughter echoed from a phone screen. Across social media, a video began spreading. Derek in front of the Mustang, camera angled to make Ethan look aggressive. The caption read, Angry old guy threatens us over a car. Ho Karen, Tasha Boomer energy. The clip was edited, cutting out Linda's yelling and Derek's taunts. Within hours, views piled up. Neighbors whispered. Strangers laughed. Ethan watched it once, reflection faint in his phone screen. He didn't look angry, just tired. The next day, he walked the neighborhood quietly, observing. He noted every HOA violation Linda had ignored. Her illegal fence extension, the garden ornaments, Derek's car blocking the sidewalk. He took photos carefully, like building a case. That evening, he laid the photos on his kitchen table, labeled them, and smiled faintly. This wasn't revenge. It was justice, delivered by their own rules. The following afternoon, he walked into the HOA meeting unannounced. The air inside smelled of coffee and carpet cleaner. Linda sat at the head of the table, surrounded by board members who already looked exhausted. Ethan placed a folder in front of her and said calmly, "Let's talk about your violations." Her confident expression faltered when Ethan stepped through the door, a file folder tucked under his arm. "Afternoon, everyone," he said calmly, placing the folder on the table. "Thought you might want to review some recent violations around the neighborhood." Linda narrowed her eyes. "This is not the time, Ethan." One of the board members spoke up. "Actually, it's open session. He's allowed to bring concerns." Ethan opened the folder and began laying out photos one by one, unauthorized structural changes, improper waste disposal, unapproved lawn decor, and illegal parking, all tied to a single address. The board members exchanged uneasy glances. Ethan didn't have to say whose address it was. Linda Thompson was printed clearly on every report. Her voice trembled as she tried to regain control. "You have no right to—" "Actually," Ethan interrupted softly, "as both a resident and a police officer, I have every right to document code violations, especially when they're from the person enforcing them." Her face reddened, fury and embarrassment mixing behind her eyes. One of the board members cleared his throat. "Linda, this is serious. We'll have to review this." Linda shot up from her chair. "You're taking his side? After everything I've done for this community?" Ethan met her glare with a calm smile. "Funny, that's exactly what I was thinking." She gathered her papers with shaking hands and stormed toward the door. Derek waited outside, phone in hand, clearly recording. She hissed at him to stop, but he kept filming anyway. Ethan watched them go, not with gloating satisfaction but quiet certainty. Linda had just started another fight, and she didn't realize how close she was to losing the war. As the meeting ended, one of the board members lingered. "Chief Parker," he said quietly, "thank you for bringing this up. Honestly, we've all been tired of her power trips." Ethan nodded. Rules should work both ways. When he stepped outside into the fading daylight, the air smelled faintly of rain, though the sky was clear. Across the street, Linda's blinds twitched. He could feel her watching, angry, humiliated, and plotting her next move. Moments later, her SUV engine roared too loud, too fast. It was the sound of someone who just realized their control was slipping. Ethan slid his hands into his pockets and started toward home, a faint smile tugging at the corner of his mouth. Whatever storm she tried to summon next, he was ready for it. But deep down he knew Linda wasn't finished. Not yet. The next morning the air felt heavier, as if the tension between them had seeped into the neighborhood itself. From his kitchen window, Ethan saw her pacing along the edge of her lawn, phone pressed to her ear, voice sharp enough to cut through the stillness. She'd been at it since dawn, calling anyone who might still believe she had power. Ethan sipped his coffee and waited. Patience, he'd learned, could be its own weapon. He wasn't seeking revenge, just accountability. Linda needed to see what happened when you built authority on rules you never followed. By midday, her counterattack arrived. Flyers appeared on every mailbox, cheaply printed sheets accusing Ethan of misconduct. "Unstable officer endangers residents," one headline read, followed by false claims of intimidation. A grainy photo of him standing beside his Mustang was printed below, as if confidence were a crime. Her signature was stamped at the bottom. Linda Thompson, HOA President. Ethan's jaw tightened. It was desperate, clumsy, and self-destructive. She didn't realize she'd just turned gossip into evidence. Still, it wasn't until his phone rang an hour later that he saw how far she'd gone. A local news station had seen the flyers online. Someone had posted them in a community forum, and they wanted his comment. At first, he considered refusing, but then he remembered the look on Linda's face when she thought she'd won. He accepted. That afternoon, a reporter and cameraman met him at the station. The air smelled of coffee and gun oil, familiar and grounding. "Chief Parker," the reporter began, "are you aware of the allegations being spread about you by an HOA leader?" Ethan smiled faintly. "I am, and I can assure you there's no truth to them. Someone made a poor decision out of frustration. I believe it'll resolve itself soon. No names, no blame. Just composure." The segment aired that evening, short but powerful. Viewers didn't see a corrupt officer. They saw calm, restraint, and quiet dignity. Comments flipped instantly. "So this is the guy Linda was trashing? He handled that like a pro. Karen messed with the wrong person. Guess the truth came out." By morning, Linda's reputation was collapsing faster than she could defend it. The HOA board called an emergency meeting. Word spread fast. Neighbors gathered on lawns, whispering. Even those who once feared her now waited to see the fall. Ethan arrived late on purpose. When he entered the small hall, Linda was mid-speech, her voice shaking with rage. "This is harassment. He's using his position to intimidate me." "Linda," the board chair said firmly, "please sit down." "I won't," she snapped. "I built this community. Without me, it would fall apart." Ethan's entrance silenced the room. He didn't raise his voice or point fingers.
He simply laid the same folder on the table and said,
"Before deciding who's intimidating who, you should review these." Inside were the flyers. Screenshots of her public posts and footage of Derek's edited video. The evidence spoke for itself. The board chair's voice turned cold. "Linda, this is unacceptable. You've abused your position, spread false information, and damaged the community's reputation. The board will vote now." Her eyes darted from face to face, searching for support. None came. The vote was unanimous, removal effective immediately. For the first time since Ethan met her, Linda looked small. The authority she built through fear vanished in silence. She gathered her papers, muttering, "This isn't over." "It is, Linda," Ethan said quietly. "You just don't know it yet." He left without waiting for applause. The victory wasn't in winning, it was in restoring balance. The next morning, the low growl of a diesel engine broke the calm. Ethan stood on his porch, coffee steaming in the cool air, as a city tow truck stopped across the street. Two municipal officers stepped out with paperwork in hand and walked straight to Linda's driveway. Moments later, metal chains clinked. Her white SUV was being hitched to the tow. Linda burst out in her robe, shouting over the noise. "You can't tow my car. I'm the HOA president." The driver didn't even look at her. "Not anymore, ma'am. Registration's expired and your HOA account shows unpaid fines." Ethan watched quietly from his porch. The irony spoke for itself. Derek ran out behind her, half awake and frantic. He slipped on the wet pavement, landing in a puddle as neighbors tried not to laugh. Phones appeared. Recordings began. As the tow truck rolled away, Linda stood frozen, drenched in humiliation. The scene was something the neighborhood would remember far longer than any rule she'd written. Ethan finally stepped off his porch and called out, "Need me to call anyone for you, Linda?" "You've already got the police on speed dial." She froze, speechless. Derek glared but said nothing. Ethan nodded toward her lawn. "Might want to fix that sprinkler timer. Wouldn't want another HOA violation." He turned and walked back toward his garage, calm and composed. Inside, the air smelled faintly of polish and gasoline. The Mustang sat waiting, sunlight gliding over its curves like liquid gold. He ran his hand across the cool metal. It wasn't triumph he felt, it was closure. Outside, the street buzzed with quiet murmurs. Balance, long missing, had returned. Ethan slid into the driver's seat. The leather sighed beneath him. When the engine started, it purred. Not loud, not aggressive, just steady and sure. As he drove past Linda's house, she stood in her doorway, clutching her phone. Their eyes met for a brief moment. No words, no victory speech, just mutual understanding. The game was over. The Mustang turned the corner, its sound fading into calm silence. The neighborhood exhaled at last, as if everything had ended the way it was always meant to. But deep down, both Ethan and Linda knew, peace never lasts forever.